I have about just short of 20 years teaching experience. I've taught across all ages and levels, but particularly specialised really there in early years and primary, because that's my favourite classroom. I've worked in both private schools and mainstream, so I've done both. And during this time, as happens with many of us, after several years in teaching, you get into teacher training and mentoring and coaching of others. But recently, I've taken a little sideways step and gone down another route. And I've done some project management of an intercultural communication course, which is why I'm having a look at this today. And right now, as Mohamed's already said, I'm in charge of communities of practice at the British Council. And what that means is a lot of the communities of practice are digital online places like our social media, and it's where people come together to learn. And a very important part of learning is being able to listen, which is why I've chosen this today. So you can see that my fun fact is that I am a terrible listener. I'm absolutely rubbish at listening. Something I've always been aware of growing up, needing to pause. And I think because of not being particularly good at it, it's something I've actually had to invest my time in becoming better at, particularly looking at managing, but like coaching, mentoring, and helping to build relationships that way. But also noticing it comes in very, very useful it can be very useful for lots of reasons. Managing conflict. So as a manager, things like managing parents and talking to them, lots of great things. I'm going to jump backwards if I can. Actually, just to quickly say, so in this talk, what I hope to do with you today is give you a very quick idea of what active listening is, to highlight some of the benefits of active listening in the classroom, and to show you some techniques, very easy, quick techniques that you can use, not using any particular special materials, using the materials you normally use, and have a little look about why this is important, or why I think this is important myself. I think it's good to start with a little bit of what is active listening. So just to take a moment here, not to listen to me, and just to have a look at the comment that is there on the screen. So something that we do in the classroom is we do teach listening and how to develop listening skills. How does active listening, sometimes called intentional listening, how does it sit apart? It doesn't really sit apart as such, but it's about how you receive the information that you're hearing. So quite often in the classroom, we're really focused on like transactional dialogues. Maybe we want to go to a cafe, we want to ask for a coffee, and we do that, we ask how much it's going to be, and we focus with our students on this kind of transactional event. So you want some information or you want something and you're trying to get it. And we get used to the patterns and we fall into this. We don't always practice as much the kind of more spontaneous dialogues. And this is really where active listening comes in, and kind of focusing on others. The reason why I think it's important, so if you're a teacher who's ever said any of these comments, have a look here at these ones, you might find it's useful for you. Just do a quick pause as you read. Lots of things can happen in our classrooms, particularly young learner classrooms, lots of developing personalities there. At times, the class doesn't seem to be, gelling. There might be lots of noise. It's quite disruptive. Perhaps your students are all rushing to get to the end of activities and get to the end of the answer. Perhaps it feels quite competitive at times, and maybe overly competitive, and this is something you want to kind of reduce. For all these reasons, I would advocate that active listening is a great skill to bring into the classroom. Active listening itself it's a great classroom management technique. So if you've got it and it's part of your routines and it's part of what you do, you will slowly see, and I say slowly because it does develop over time, the relationships change with some of the students in your group as they get to know each other better, because the purpose behind active listening is really to actually hear more about what the person is telling you about themselves. I think recently we've all seen a lot of news about AI and everything that's coming, and we've got some great tech and everything, but the need still for our students to have very strong communication skills and critical thought and critical thinking skills. This is still like quite at the fore of what we're looking at in our teaching, and active listening forms a part of this. And also, and I think this is very important, I say nowadays more than ever, but I think we're all more aware of it coming out of the pandemic, is about how our students feel and their well-being and their mental health. And active listening is a great way to kind of develop the social emotional learning, and a great way to have students feel heard and respected in the classroom. So at this point, what I would like to do just for 5 minutes is to actually show you what active listening is in its absolute purest form, so everyone is clear about what it is. Ron, can I ask you to come on and join me for a second?
I'm here.
Hello, thank you. Right, Ron, I'd just like to know, basically, how has your week been?
It's been busy. I've had some ups and some downs, but busy. I have a lot of catching up to do because I'm on holiday right now. So I'm working from home, trying to catch up, and trying to relax as well. So yeah, but it's been busy, and I'm taking care of some personal things at home too. Not only catching up on work, but catching up on household things, like fixing things, things like that. So that's how my week is, or has been.
You use the word busy a lot. I don't know if you're aware. And you repeated it 3 times. And you seemed a little hesitant in how to describe your week. Would you say that's fair?
I'm not hesitant, but probably held back and not trying to go into details about what's keeping me busy. But I think you did hit that right, that I did repeat that quite a few times, because that's sort of how I see it, just doing.
And how does it make you feel? Is it enjoyable to have weeks like this one?
Well, I think it's sort of a normal week. I'm just a busy person. I like to stay busy. I have my downtimes where I don't want to do anything. But staying busy it's me. That's my personality. So I stay busy with work, reading. When I say busy, I don't mean just work. I mean working in my garden, going shopping, just doing things that keep me busy. But when I relax, that's my downtime. And relaxing for me is probably watching some crazy show on television, just to sort of just tune out, or just grabbing a book and reading. I do a lot of reading, and that's relaxing for me, actually. So some people would say I'm working, but I'm not. I like reading. Or I'll just listen to some music or the radio. I love to listen to the radio while I'm cooking.
Lots of actions.
Yeah, it's a lot of action, but I'm always doing something.
No, it tells it's an insight into, I think, who you are. Lots of action. Like I say, not down moments. Reading's a down moment, isn't it? But filling. Would you say is it fair to say you like to fill your time to feel productive?
Um, mm, no, I don't see it that way, like I'm filling my time. I know that there's things I have to do. That I do know. I mean, I'm a teacher. I got to check papers. I got to, do planning, do some lesson planning, and catch up on that. So that's stuff I have to do. But working in my garden, that's also keeping busy, but I don't have to do that. I do that for pleasure. Uh, I don't have to cook, but I want to eat something decent, healthy. So, I cook. But if I'm going to cook, I have to go shopping. And because I like to eat fresh vegetables and, everything fresh. Uh, and reading, well, I got to get to the bookstore to get books, and I got to go to the library. I get a lot of stuff from the library. And so I'm at the library at least once a week. So, yeah. And then I think just, catching up on my health, that's important too, my wellness. And so resting, relaxing, just laying down sometimes, and just no sound at all, no television, no radio, no reading, things like that. And yeah, those all kind of keep me busy, but busy doesn't always mean for me doing something. Busy can also be for me doing nothing. Just busy doing nothing.
No, that's fair enough. So am I right in saying that, so obviously you enjoy your work and you enjoy reading. Is the reading is sometimes connected to work and sometimes not? It could be for both, would you say?
Oh, I try not to do that, but I do have to do a lot of reading for my work, a lot. I do a lot of research. And so I would say about maybe 50% of what I read is work related.
Okay. Yeah.
The other 50%, I try to say that that's just for pure enjoyment, but sometimes it turns out to be 70% of what I'm reading is work related.
I think we've all been there.
Yes, we're teachers.
Exactly. Oh, thank you for sharing all that with me. I think if it's fair, what I've learned about you in the last 5 minutes is that you're someone, you have quite a range of like very rich kind of hobbies and interests. So you've mentioned reading a fair bit, but also you've talked about your garden a lot. I think, and linking to your garden, it was linked because of the order that you spoke about it in. But you talked about cooking as well and enjoying fresh fruits and fresh vegetables, and the getting out to go. You get out quite a lot because you've got to go to obviously buy your food, but also to go and get any books that you may wish to read. Something I thought that was very interesting as well is that you mentioned when you were describing all the things that you like and what keeps you kind of, I say, what occupies your time, what you're doing. You also mentioned something, struck it out with me about having no sound. And sometimes you just like to remove all sound. So thank you. I feel I've learned a lot about you in that 5 minutes.
Thank you.
A quick question, last question, not this question.
Mhm.
How comfortable or not was it having that interaction? Because I probably, hopefully, didn't interject. How comfortable was it in your part?
Well, I know that I sort of felt that I was being interviewed, but other than that, it's comfortable in the sense that you weren't asking uncomfortable things. It stayed, pretty, I would say, like two people having small talk in a way. And I don't feel that I revealed anything private. I would say that to anybody that I know. And most of my students know that about me. I say that in the beginning when I introduce myself to students about my garden, cooking, reading, and that those are important to me. So it didn't make me feel uncomfortable at all. No, it was okay.
Oh, that's good. I know it can. That's all. It depends on the person. But hopefully, in that interaction there, and thank you, Ron. What I wanted to show is active listening in its purest form is asking a question, allowing the person to answer and to say whatever they want, but also hopefully at times you also notice the things that I was doing. So for example, trying to summarize to make sure that what I'd understood was what Ron was actually trying to share with me, and that we were agreeing on that. I think that's important. But also to clarify as well. So I think I asked, when you said busy, I asked you used the word busy a lot, just to see whether that was something that you reacted to or, wanted to talk about a bit more. And to clarify what you meant by it. And later on, you did say, I don't mean it as like a bad thing. I mean it as that, I have lots of things. I'm like to be doing things. And it became clear to me what it meant to you. And I won't lie, initially, when I say the word busy, and this is purely me because it's my context, but I bring to it, I say some negativity to the word,
yeah, I think that's a matter of perception of the word busy. But,
yeah.
I would like to add that what I noticed is that you made it about me. You didn't do any, what's called ping pong story exchanges where I say something and then you say something about yourself. You made it about me. You concentrated on me. Everything, like I said, I felt like I was being interviewed, but that's okay. That you made that about me because you were trying to find out about me. And it's like giving somebody their maybe instead of 15 minutes of talk, but like Andy Warhol's 50-minute of fame, but you gave me like 5 minutes to talk about myself by using questions. I thought that was interesting.
Good. So I think I say segue, we're going to go backwards, but I'm going to jump backwards a little bit to the initial quote to share with you. The point of active listening, and in its purest form, which we've just seen there, is to allow people to listen. And at the end of the day, we're English language teachers, and we're teaching our students a language to study and to get jobs. But what they're going to be doing when they're studying and working is they're going to be talking to colleagues, to friends, and they're going to be discussing things and maybe bringing different perspectives, not always agreeing about something. And the ability to listen to someone, and as I think also you pointed out, it's not just a ping pong, they say something, you reply, they say something, you reply. We fall into habits with this as English language teachers, as of course we do, because that's it's in every course book. It's like where every dialogue is constructed around. But the point I'd like to make today is that there is space also to have these kinds of like listening opportunities as well. So obviously I'm not saying get rid of all the other things that we do them for a very good reason, but allow your students to have that kind of opportunity as well to actually listen to each other, and it will feed into their relationships and hopefully build them and deepen them, and it will hopefully build levels of trust, and people will learn a lot more about one another and about what they think, and become a bit more comfortable with hopefully difference and disagreement, and it's not be a conflict. And I think if we're looking at the world today and we're looking at particularly social media, which I work in, that kind of avoiding a knee-jerk reaction, giving a person space to ask them more questions about what they mean, not assuming that you know what they mean, but actually genuinely using the language to try and find out more and to learn a little bit more about what exactly they meant, and to give them the time and space to do that. So I think this is a fantastic skill for all of us, language learners or not. But I think given that we are English language teachers, it sits very well in our classroom as a skill that we'd like to develop. as something that we want our students to be able to do in the future to allow them to speak to others effectively. So what we just saw with Ron and myself there was a very kind of pure, at its purest. That's what active listening's like. It is a little like an interview, which is the word that Ron used. It's a person having the space to fully share everything that they wish to. And I think, again, Ron commented on this, and it's true. It's about what you want to share. You're not forced to share anything that you don't want to. But the point of me, the listener, is to just kind of share with the person who's speaking what I'm picking up about what they're saying and how it's coming across to me. And at one point, I did ask Ron a question and said, you sound like very, very busy all the time. And he said, no, I just fill my time, which allowed him to say, no, that's not how I meant it. And just to clarify that, which again gives me some information. So if we'd like to develop this, and it's something to develop over time, something to do with our students, how would we go about it? Well, let's start straight away in the primary classroom. Let's jump in there into the young learner classroom, let's jump into young learners and jump into primary. I'm going to use today as an example here, I'm going to use an example from the British Council website, Teach English website. It's free on here. I can share it with you at the end, but you can all have a look at this lesson and see why I've chosen this particular one. So this lesson is level 1, and it's with the students. They're exploring the different types of learning and what the future of learning might look like. So how to take normal lesson materials, so your course book, lesson materials like this one from a website, how to take them and how to start kind of doing a little bit of active listening with your students at a very young age. Okay, one great activity that you could do with your students is the use of visuals. We all do it, we all do it quite a lot. I'm going to grab a book here. We all do quite a lot with our students, and covering sections. What do you think you can see? What's coming next? This is a very, normal technique in the primary classroom. Pictures are everywhere, so let's use them, and they're great for developing listening. So here we have a picture, and we have a girl sat in the middle. What I would do with this at this stage is I would be asking my students to tell me what they can see. Describe this picture to me. Does it look like a normal picture? Is there anything strange about this picture? I think as we see it right now, it looks perfectly. Yeah. There's a girl sat holding something in her hands, maybe some food. She's sat, she's got her book next to her, picture behind her. It all looks very normal and probably like many of our living rooms. So, ask the students to narrate and to share with you what they see. After that, I would ask them, what do they think might be over here? And obviously you can see the outline here. We've got a little bit of a clue. It's a good place to start where there's a clue. We've got like what looks like a photo frame. Ask them, what do they think is going to be in there? It probably wouldn't be surprising for them to say a photo of a family, given that we've got, a family photo there in front of us already. And I would just start asking them, what do they think is around the girl? What do they suspect? I give them this handout then, and I tell them that I'm going to describe to them the rest of the picture. And I would. And I'd describe the picture, and I'd ask them to listen and to draw what they hear. At the end, I give them a chance to compare their pictures, go around, have a look. Have they all drawn the same thing? What differences have they got? It's a great opportunity for someone who's perhaps drawn something differently to the others to go, oh, 3 other people have, drawn this and I've drawn that. I think I might be wrong. And just, I would stand back at this point and allow them to change their picture if they wanted, not to intervene too much. You never know, they might be right, but I would let them have that kind of peer check opportunity to go to talk to others about what they saw. And then I would share with them the final picture, which I'm going to share with you now, which is here. And as you can see, we've gone from what was quite an ordinary picture to being a less ordinary picture. We've gone from having a girl sat on the sofa with a picture of a family behind, and if we look now, it's really quite different. Admittedly, when you're reading the description to this one, because all of this looks, it's all quite strange and futuristic, because obviously it's about linked to the lesson, students are probably going to make mistakes, which is another reason why I said allow them time to compare and to check and, you know, to have a look. With this lesson plan, you're actually given the description. And what I would say is, while you're doing it, the students might say, Miss, what did you say? What's next to her foot? What's on the right? What's on the left? Absolutely repeat it, describe it again. You know, if they want to go back and describe a part of the picture again, do that. It's absolutely fine. So like allowing the students to interject, allowing them to kind of control your pace. This isn't a recording. It's not like you press the play button and they have to listen to the end. They can interject. They can go and ask you questions. They can, you know, ask you to clarify things. This is the whole point. Obviously, you're going to have to provide them with some language there. You're going to have to provide them with some classroom language. And it's a great opportunity over time, if you do an activity like this and you continually do visuals like this, to actually build up a lot of functional language, like, you know, what's on the right hand side, what's on the left hand side, what's top, what's the bottom. So you've got like the actual layout itself, and you say like, what did you say about? And there's lots of kind of functional language there for clarification as well. And build it up with the students and get to the point where hopefully towards the end of the year, the school year, or it depends on the level, maybe end of term, if you've done this activity a few times, you'll say, oh, we're going to do this activity, we've done it before, we're going to describe the picture, what language, what might be useful for you. And you can all board it straight away. You can have monitors come up, put the words on the board. And before you actually sit and describe it, the students have behind them on the board like a whole list of kind of stems and chunks of language that they can use to stop you, check, clarify. So that gives them that level of control and the feeling that they're not just being spoken to, but they can control what's being said to them, and then they can interject and ask questions. So that is how I would use this particular lesson, and that would develop active listening, because it's asking students to take ownership of the listening. You know, they're not just passive, they're not just listening, but to ask further questions, to ask, you know, to get involved with the listening. It also allows them opportunity, I think, which is good, to kind of like confer and check with others as well. I think that's very healthy. You know, quite often when we hear something on the news, we would check in with the person next to us and did you understand that the same way I did? It's a very normal, I say it's a normal thing to do, but it's a skill, and it develops this kind of the skill. As you can see, it is quite a difficult one. So after the you know, at the end, I would give them the picture, and I'd let them compare it to their own. We could do a little bit to spot the difference. I wouldn't be doing this it would tell me something about their ability to listen. It would tell me something potentially about their grammar or their lexis, if it was the fact that there was words in here and vocabulary they didn't know. Of course, I'd have to consider that before doing this activity. You know, do I have to pre-teach any words? Do they know the word like lamp? Or, you know, do they know the word tree? Checking all these kinds of things. And like, you know, we've got spaceship over here. You know, do they know all these words and will they be able to do this? But you know, alternatively, it's a good way to kind of, if you think they know most of it, it's a great way to kind of check their knowledge and to check their understanding, to do an activity like this. And it's fun. And it embraces lots of other skills, because in our classroom, obviously, we have students, they're constantly asked to produce through their speaking, they're constantly asked to produce through writing, but this is a great way actually as well to be quite creative and to ask them to do something a bit more artistic. And we will have learners who will flourish and thrive, and others who don't enjoy it as much, which is why we do these things a bit eclectically, and we have a nice mix. This is one example of a primary classroom activity that would develop active listening. There are others, so I'll quickly share with you a few. You probably know them, but you might know them by other names. We've got popcorn storytelling. So this would be a circle time activity. Lots of us, if we've got a primary class and we have the room and the space, we might sit down together in a big circle on the floor. Imagine recently we have been studying food. This is the example I've got here. I'm with a class who's maybe about 6-7 years of age. They've been studying different kinds of food. And I'd give them the sentence. I went to the supermarket and I bought. And I drill it. I went to the supermarket and I bought. I went to the supermarket and I bought. I went to the supermarket and I bought. We whisper drills, shouting drills, but we drill that then. Okay. And then I would say I went to the supermarket and I bought. And there's different ways to do this. It depends on the level. I would either say an apple, or I might take a flashcard from the floor and say an apple. Okay. We might have been doing, as this example kind of insinuates, we might have been doing the alphabet recently. And I would say, okay, apple, and we'd point to the A of the alphabet. And just to reinforce the idea that I've taken the A there, an apple. And then I would encourage the next person, or if I'm lucky enough to actually have, some of us sometimes have teaching assistants. It depends. We may have someone in the classroom if we've got a student with particular needs. If there's anyone else in that classroom, I would prep them in advance and I would have them do the next sentence so that we can model this. If not, I would go and probably choose one of the stronger students who's more confident speaking and also not, afraid to make a mistake. And I get them to say the next sentence, which would be, I went to the supermarket and I bought an apple and some bread, or whatever they want to choose, and some biscuits. And that would be if we're doing the alphabet. Obviously, if we've got flashcards in the middle, we just pull one out. It could be, I was going to say broccoli, but that's another B. It could be milk, cheese, whatever they happen to bring. And we go around our circle. And if we did use flashcards, we wouldn't be sharing them with others. And people would have to listen to what people are saying and to kind of remember that and to repeat it so that the sentence gets longer and longer. And we see how far we can get. Again, I wouldn't make it a test or too, stressful for my students. If they don't know, they can't remember, they look at someone and go, oh, I can't remember what they said. Allow the others to interject, allow them to share with them, because I think it's very important that you can ask for clarification. What did they say? What did they say? Can you tell me? Again, it's part of the natural kind of listening skill, and get them to fill it in and to really kind of release any kind of pressure on this kind of activity. And we go around and see how much they can remember. When I've done this in the classroom, I've had students who sat down and wanted to try and remember it all and write the longest sentence ever. And of course, you could take this into a writing activity if you wanted to afterwards. Other primary activities are simple things like Simon Says. We've all played it. We've got Simon Says, touch your head, touch your toes. Just by removing the word Simon Says, having to listen very carefully, that is active listening. That is, actually having to truly listen to the words and recognize the words and to, what have I got to do next? Obviously, to kind of provide other varieties, you don't have to stick to body parts. It could be you're moving to things like daily activities. Simon Says, brush your hair. Simon Says, you're brushing your teeth. Simon Says, you're putting on clothes, and you can act them out as you go. Another primary activity is spot the difference storytelling. This is, a lot of us tell stories, especially with our primary students. If you've got quite a nice short story and you'd have time to read it twice, read it once, involve the students, read it aloud to them, get them involved, then read it again, but this time make some changes. Do they notice the changes? Can they hear them? Can they go, oh, teacher, that's not what you said. That's not true, it's this. And get them involved and to actually listen to the difference, so that they're kind of, again, they're being primed to probably, you're likely to be using your tone of voice to kind of suggest maybe some of the changes in the story. They're becoming a bit more used to listening to that kind of tone of voice change and nuance there. They're also actually being forced to listen to every word that is being said. Final two activities that would also, help with active listening: 20 questions. So if you're not aware of this activity, a standard way to play it, but there's lots of ways. It's like, I'm thinking of something, and normally, let's say it's we'll go back to food because it's a very easy example. We studied food, all know lots of words, and the other students have to ask questions to work out what's in my head. And maybe we've even drawn it on a small piece of paper, on a little board, and that we're holding it this way. And everyone has to ask us questions like, is it fruit? Is it green? Do I eat it at breakfast? It's a great way to practice question forms, but also they have to listen to each other, because then you get 20 questions and they don't have to waste them. So they have to make sure they're actually listening to what other people have asked, so that they can deduce what it is that is on your board, what it is the item that you're concealing. And lastly, the final activity that I'd recommend with primary, although there are more than this, but this is a sample of activities you could do, is you could look at, how are they feeling? So quite often, when we're doing recordings in the classroom, people, they're meant to be real life situations. Part of active listening is actually picking up on kind of like the change in intonation, change in voice. So something that you could be doing, if it's a good example in the materials that you have, maybe there is one person who's slowly getting angry with the other person because there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe they gave them the wrong change, for example, in a cafe. Focusing on how people are feeling, and do this quite regularly. So every time you're listening to something, how are these people feeling? How do you know that? And have a look at any pictures that accompany to check and make sure that they're correct and that they're hearing it right. Because we don't often do a lot. Well, it depends. Some people do. But around in our classrooms of actually teaching students to really pick up on those kind of cues that people have, whether they're audio cues or whether they're visual cues that people kind of embed into what they are saying. So these are all ideas for the primary classroom, but this is tips for all young learners. So I thought I'd put in a quick secondary classroom activity as well. Just leap forward again. I'm going to use Teaching English website. This one, as you can see from the top, it's a lesson about art, and it's a lesson about students discussing art and what is art. It's a controversial topic, but I think one that we all agree that we all have very different tastes when it comes to art and what we might enjoy and what we might think is, I say valid, but should be celebrated. This suggestion for the secondary classroom, of course, with the secondaries, you could use any of the activities I've just listed there. For the with the primaries, a lot of them would work with our secondaries, especially those maybe who are lower level. But if you're looking to do something with maybe a bit higher levels, a very simple technique a lot of us use is the think, share, pair. That this is a great opportunity to practice active listening. So students have a look at a picture, like maybe this one that's here, and you ask them, what do you think of this? Do you think that this is art? When they're sharing, I would put in a few rules just to add here. I would put in some rules. And I would create them with the students, and hopefully over time, the more we do this kind of activity, the more they can kind of tell me what the rules are. But the rules would be things like, do not interrupt the person who's talking. Just, listen, don't interrupt them. Remember, it's okay to have different opinions. The purpose is not to make someone agree with yours here. The purpose is just to understand the person and what they think. If you want to ask clarifying questions, if you want to check and that you've understood them, go ahead and do it. If you have a follow-up question, if they've said something you think is really interesting at the end and you want to find out more, ask them it. So I build some rules around it, and obviously with an activity like this, we would model it in the classroom before allowing everyone to go and do it. Again, using the board, probably building a bank of kind of questions that, you know, people might want to use to kind of ask follow-up questions or to ask clarifying questions, and putting them on the board so that the students have them. So very simple, think, share, pair. And I could do that with my secondaries as well. You're going to say we've done this already. We did. But with the secondaries, especially as our students get older, and potentially if they're getting more fluent and to higher levels, and we're looking maybe more intermediate level, B1 level, we can move into activities a little bit like the one that I did with Ron at the beginning. In fact, you could do that. So how's your week been, or how was your weekend? It could be your opening routine in your lesson, if that's something that you would like to have. It's a nice way for students to greet each other. It's a great way to start the week, to actually listen and learn a little bit about their partner and who they're working with this week, and to learn a little about their life. So you could use it for that. Alternatively, another great kind of way to use active listening is reflection, right at the other end of the lesson. So maybe the question, what did you learn today? And asking your partner to tell you, what did they learn? It might not have been the Lexis or the grammar that you were teaching or that you hoped that they would learn. It could be that it was something else. Like they might have learned something interesting about someone in the class, or they might have learned a fact that they didn't know or shocked them. Allow the students to find out what that person learnt. By having someone say what they actually learned and having to kind of put it into words themselves, it's a great way to get our students involved in their own assessment and their own kind of sense of progress. A great activity to jump out of that is if you are doing like class journals and you're having the students write down very quickly, what they've actually learned and everything in a day. Do the speaking first and then write down what they've learned in a class journal. And obviously you can use this kind of activity with anything like IELTS, and you've got lots of debates and you've got lots of like big statements like, I am for capital punishment, I'm against capital punishment, for example. That would be one that you might get in the IELTS. And you can use this to, like, someone can just talk, and it's a great way to generate ideas and start thinking about topics. And it works really, really well before you do any kind of writing task, to kind of really kind of get out all the ideas so that students feel confident when they come to doing the writing, that they've explored lots of different possibilities they can talk about. So I'm conscious of time. These would be quick blitz through lots of different activities you could do in the Young Learner classroom if you wanted to build active listening. I've taken this nice, I like this diagram from Education Corner that kind of summarizes what active listening is. It's the focus on all these different things. It is essentially the focus on understanding, and understanding the person that you're talking to. You're not trying to get anything from them. You're just trying to genuinely understand what they're saying to you. And lastly, I mean, the importance of it. I hope you feel, having seen a few of the ideas today and watched me and Ron talk, that you can see its value. I would say that for me, it's the importance of being heard, having my voice heard. And even for us shyer students in the class who might not want to do like activities like this in front of people, but the sense that someone's listening and hearing what they're saying and what they're sharing, which is very important for many reasons. I think it helps us build the relationships, as I've said. So it's a classroom management tool, but also it helps us to handle difference, which is great for communication and intercultural communication as students grow and develop. It's great for our well-being and our health, and it's great to feel valued and recognised, and it helps to build resilience, which is a word that we hear a lot of people talking about. And also it helps us to evaluate and build this kind of critical thought and to understand sometimes what people need from us. Quite often we jump in and want to just say, oh, that happened to me, or, but actually to really listen to someone and work out what they want from you. Do they want you just to listen? Do they want you to coach them? Do they want you to advocate for them? What do they want from you? Which is a very important skill. So personally, I'm a very big fan of active listening. I hope that you all feel you've got something from this today. I'm just sharing here these are the links to the lessons that you just saw me using there. If anyone's taking any screenshots or anything, these are the links to the lessons there. And if you are looking for further reading, there's tons to do, but these are nice bite-sized kind of articles that I've found very useful when learning about this topic, that you might want to have a look at yourself. And the reason I put down the last one, the NHS England, is going back to resilience and talk about well-being. There's a lot of talk about teenagers and about, teenagers under pressure with exams and their sense of, their mental health, essentially. So the NHS, which is the hospital board in the UK, has written a lot about active listening and how it can be really great for building relationships and for having people be heard as a result. So it's been advocated as well by medicine as well as by teachers to use in the classroom. There you go.